Hi, Misha here, and I'm recording this on August 15th, 2020, and we have a box, and typically I don't worry about unboxing, but I thought this might be fun because in this box are the final 5, they shipped them all at once, members in Eaglemoss's Star Trek Starships Collection. So this will be the final box I will get, at least for the standard series. There'll still be bonuses and specials, and they just started the Star Trek Online and all that, but for the original collection that's been going on since, well, kind of 2013, at least in pre-production form, this is it. So let's get to work. Alright, here we go. I didn't want to open this on camera just because my address is on that side, and probably I'm not super paranoid. No reason to do it. Packing pillows. I actually usually reuse these when I ship all my stuff. And that makes 5. My voice out of the way in case any credit card info's on there. I don't know. I don't know how many magazines they ship. A lot of times they don't have all the magazines printed. Yeah, there's just 2, I think. Yeah, 2. That means the 3 others they'll ship later. They always do, but for whatever reason, the models seem to come before the magazines. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna unbox these and then, I don't know, talk about each one a little bit. Why not? And then get on with my weekend. How's your weekend going? Alright, here are the 5 out of the box and on the stand. First off, no broken parts, which, to be fair, I've only had a truly broken part 1 or 2 times. Usually, if there's something loose in the package, it's just because it wasn't glued enough and just needs sticking back on and gluing. But no, not even that this time. So, on the left, issue 176, we have the Terrelian ship, the Plague ship. This one has been out for a little while, but I was waiting to order it when he ordered enough to get free shipping and all that. Next, we have the Sheliak colony ship. Then we have the Husnok Warship. Then we have the Vidian cruiser. And then we end the row and the collection with the Borg cube a la First Contact. It's interesting that 4 of the 5 are from Next Generation. We get the one Vidian from Voyager. They're all alien ships, no Federation, and not even any Romulan or Klingon. The Terrelian and the Vidian are pretty well all new. Interestingly, while the Sheliak and the Husnock, we've had other variants of that in the collection, as well as, of course, a couple of other Borg cubes. They are all new molds, all new models. The scaling is different, which is one nice thing about Eaglemoss. They don't just take a base mold and just modify it and detract. They do make a all-new mold each time, even if in the real world the model itself was just basically a reuse. Another thing, they're pretty heavy. The Terrelian is pretty much all metal except for its blue balls. The Sheliak yeah, I knew that was going to happen. The stand on this is not great. Anyway, the Sheliak corporate is more plastic just because of how detailed it is. Still has a metal core. The Husnock, though, is actually quite heavy, heavier than I expected. And the Vidian is pretty much all metal, which is neat. And then the cube is pretty much all plastic. With them, what they do is with these cubes, it's a plastic model with like a metal cube inside it for weight. So yeah, let's just focus on each one for a minute and just talk a little bit about it. And yeah, kind of wrap up the whole Eaglemoss collection. Alright, let's start with issue 176, the Turalyon plague ship. The species name, Terrelian, kind of like Antares for ship class, seems to be a huge favorite of Star Trek writers. Now, technically they'll change an A to an E, or an I to a Y, or add an extra R, take an R away, add an extra L. But, by and large, they've used this name a lot. Next Generation, even in Voyager, even in the Delta Quadrant. This would have been one of the first, because it was in the Season 1 episode, Haven. And actually, even though I knocked it off the stand, as long as you don't bump the front, the weight keeps it pushing forward. Now, I think it's actually supposed to be put on this way, but I actually don't think that's right. That puts it at a very high angle, very unstable, and you don't get to see the blue balls. Put it on this way, and it just seems like it displays better. Kind of the same style as our Ferengi Marauder. Again, it's secure. So what I would do is I'd set this at the back of one shelf, so even if it gets bumped from the front, it's not going to go anywhere, because side to side it's quite stable. Anyway, personal thoughts. What an interesting design. I'll give them credit for that. Look at my blue balls I'm trying here. It is, solid. Pretty much all the top is metal, sides are metal, this bottom middle portion is plastic, and of course the blue ball is plastic. Pretty simple design, but very different, very fish-like. I assume this is the front. You would kind of think this might be, but the blue ball seems to be the engine. The Terrelians are a very interesting species, at least potentially, in a very crappy episode, Haven. It's said that they destroyed themselves, that they had a late 20th century level of technology, at least for chemical warfare, and a biological plague got released accidentally during a civil war, wiping out all life on Terrelian, and that a few unfortunate souls who were infected took the starships they had and fled their homeworld looking for a cure. This seems to have been a very recent event, at least relatively speaking, because it doesn't seem like they would have lived for hundreds of years. Oh, come on, I'm going to have to drop it on. Oh, almost got it. It doesn't seem like they would have been, palling around forever. It's said in the episode, which takes place in 2364, that it was believed that the last Terrelian plague ship, as they were known, was destroyed in 2356. And that seems to have been how most of them were reacted to, and you can't really blame people. They were going to other places and spreading the disease there and killing other people, so they were kind of hunted down and destroyed. Unfortunate, but very Klingon way of doing it. I guess they needed N95 masks and gloves. Kind of an interesting ship to get right now, I suppose. In fact, this isn't exactly the most healthy lot of ships in the first place. But yeah, I like it. It's weird. Again, it wouldn't have been one I would have placed an order for just for it, but to get the free bonus, and I used a discount code to get, I think, 15% off, so it wasn't bad, like 20 bucks. The next one, though, I actually was kind of looking forward to. The Sheliak. The Sheliak Corporate was the name of the government, and this is referred to as the colony ship, but also as the Sheliak Warship. So, yeah, they are a very non-humanoid species with no gender. They seem to be cold-blooded, or at least not warm-blooded. And they appear in the Season 2 episode Ensigns of Command, which, unlike Haven, is actually a good episode. One I like, anyway. Now, this is a redress of the Merchantman. One of many, but it's not at all supposed to be the same ship, because in the episode, this is comparable in size to the Enterprise, which is a little under 650 meters, whereas the Merchantman is about 150 meters. Anyway, this is also considered to be about as powerful, or at least a threat to the Federation. So it's just a different ship. And this was back when model making, before CGI, they did their best. The Sheliak seemed to be technologically on par, although maybe a different tech tree from the Federation. So the only thing I found a little odd are the very blatant, like, old school style engines left over from the Merchantman. But if I'm incorrect, let me know. But I believe most of the ship was seen from the front, top or bottom. I don't know that the rear engine bells, engine nozzles were seen in the episode much, so we can kind of just disregard. It has little pods and things. Because there's more sticky yaddy bits on this than our Merchantman, it's a little bit smaller. It's actually about the right average size for an Eaglemoss model. To be fair, the Merchantman is a little oversized. I'm not complaining, it's a nice model. But this one's a little bit smaller scale, just because of more detail. And it's a little lighter because, while it has plenty of weight, to get all the detail in, it has to have more plastic. Yeah, this is one I like. It only appeared once, which is fine. The Sheliak, though, seemed interesting race, and it's one of the few episodes where the A plot and the B plot were both quite interesting, and both showed Picard in the A plot being very clever with diplomacy, and Data being clever by learning how to manipulate people and get some. So, yeah. I'm actually glad that one didn't come in broken. Seems delicate. And actually, that was the one box of the 5 that was kind of popped open a little bit in shipping. But it's okay. Next up, we have a ship from just a little bit later in Next Generation. The Husnok Warship. This is from Season 3, episode The Survivors, with Kevin Oxbridge. Kind of a mixed bag episode. The Deanna part with the music box was annoying. But the mystery part and the kind of final reveal of the Dowd what Kevin was interesting. In the episode, the ship is an illusion, but a real warship of the Husnock did attack and completely obliterate the Federation colony, killing every human, only leaving the Dowd, Kevin, alive. And in retaliation, he wiped them all out. He basically blinked them out of existence. So we never see a Husnock, and the Federation never encounters them. It almost would have been interesting if he'd been a member of the Q Continuum, kind of like Amanda Rogers' parents. But oh well. I believe, and I could be wrong, we see this, of course we see this a couple of times in the episode, once the Enterprise encounters it, destroys it, but I believe in the beginning this lower spike isn't on it, and then later when it comes back it's there, and that's to make the ship seem more aggressive. It is decidedly a warship. The Husnock are said to be very aggressive and warlike and uncivilized, so I'm kind of thinking like Nausicaan, but could be wrong on that. Since it did completely obliterate a colony, I almost like to think this spike is some kind of energy weapon, like a major cannon to attack a ground target. Even the, what presumably are the nacelles, look very aggressive, very spiky. It's a neat ship, and the model here is very heavy. This is plastic, but the entire top bit is metal. It's actually better than I thought it would be. And we've received a few other modifications of the Husnock ship in the collection already, including the smuggler ship. Probably do a comparison video one day on those, but it sits on its stand quite well. I mean, nothing, not the best, not the worst, but it's not going to come up unless you bump it, and it doesn't seem to be terribly fragile, except for maybe that lower spike. But yeah, I'm glad they did it. It's a good, if not great, episode of Next Generation, and quite memorable, and since this ship was reused a few times, it's nice to have it. So issues 176 through 178 were all from TNG, and actually all from early TNG. And now we're going to flip it to early Voyager with another Vidian ship. The Vidians were introduced in Season 1 as another adversary, in addition to the Kazon. And much like the Terrelians, they too were suffering from a race-wide disease. The Turalyon was known as the plague. This is known as the phage, and the symptoms seem to be different. This seems to basically rot them from the inside out, and if they keep replacing organs and such, they stay alive. We have had another Vidian ship in the collection already, the Warship, which seems, although we don't have confirmation, to be a smaller ship. Not tiny. The very first Vidian ship we see is actually a modification of the Merchantman, so related in a lot of ways to our friend here. But that's a small two-man ship. This is much bigger, probably the biggest Vidian ship we come across. It has a crew of 300, 350, and whereas the Warship seems to be primarily geared towards combat, this seems to be geared towards combat, sure, but also organ harvesting in that, because we see it well equipped to take on and subdue Voyager a couple of different times. It's about 500 meters, so a little bit smaller than a Galaxy class, certainly bigger than an Intrepid though. Like I said, a crew of 300, 350 at least. It has thermometric charges, I believe they say. Anyway, charges, torpedoes, whatever. And phasers, or at least what they equivalent to phasers, energy weapons. Interestingly, the Vidians don't have transporters. So instead, it uses a grappler and cutting system, not unlike the grappler seen in Star Trek Enterprise. And the reasoning for this is that while the Vidians are advanced in spacefaring, because they've had the phage for so long, they have very advanced medical science, and to some extent weapons, but other parts of science, like transporters, they've had to kind of forego and ignore. They obviously still have a shipbuilding industry, either that or they had a lot built before the phage and are able to keep them running. Interestingly, the Vidian ships are very compact inside, meaning they have many small rooms because, again, the occupants are sick, so they are very isolated. I'm sure they have N95 masks. So it's a very different layout and different culture, and that's what made them. It's a shame they didn't flesh them out more, because they were shaping up to be a very sympathetic villain, or maybe a very anti-hero style ally, because they weren't mean. They just were dying and desperate, and there's a commentary there. It's just a shame they took Neelix's lungs and not his vocal cords too. Actually, I kind of like Neelix, but he has his moments. He gets better as time goes by. Kess, on the other hand, really annoys me. Sorry, just does. Yeah, the model's pretty much all metal. Very flat. There's a bit of a plastic section in the bottom, and that's just kind of an artifact of how die-cast manufacturing works. But yeah, I'm actually glad to have this, because if you count the Merchantman as part of the Vidian fleet, and then we have the Warship, we have the three ships we really saw the Vidians, and they would reoccur. They are mostly in seasons 1, 2, and a little bit in 3, and then had kind of a reappearance in season 7 or 6. Which one? 6, I think, when Kess came back. So yeah, I was glad we have this. At least it's something not Next Generation to kind of break things up. I believe this would have been a CGI model, at least in part, because it was right around that time when they were going from practical models, practical miniatures, to CGI. And that's 179. What about 180? The Borg cube, a la First Contact. Of course, the Borg cube first appeared in Q2, reappearing in Best of Both Worlds. And there was a practical miniature. It wasn't just a matte painting, although we mostly see it as coming at you, kind of edge on like this. I'll do it a few times and see if I got it right. Yeah, that's all we saw in Next Generation. I was thinking, yeah, because in Descent there was the Renegade ship, as it's known, and we don't. There's references to a cube in Borg, but we don't really see it. We do see it in the introduction, first episode of Deep Space Nine, Emissary. And of course we see it over a dozen times in Voyager, because, yeah, Voyager and Janeway and the Queen had this thing. I think they just needed to get a room, honestly. Get some of that tension out, frankly. Kind of did feel like, I'm just thinking on it, felt like two divorced parents arguing over their child when they talked about 7 of 9. Think about it. It really seemed like the Borg Queen and Janeway had a child, 7 of 9. They got divorced, and they were fighting over her. God, that would be an awful fanfic. Oh, and then there's Data, and okay, I'm going to stop now. Anyway, First Contact. Of course, see the Borg cube again at the beginning of First Contact in a big battle scene. And it was definitely given more detail. I believe it was basically a CGI model at this point for that film. Might have been some practical, but I believe most of that was CGI. So it is a different variant, which makes sense. The Borg adapt and change, and they would have changed over the preceding 7-8 years since Best of Both Worlds. So that's okay. Interestingly, whereas in Best of Both Worlds, the Federation lost 39 out of 40 ships and did no real damage to the cube that we know of. In First Contact, an unknown number, but still quite large, at least the same, probably 40 or more ships. You know, at least half were probably lost or severely damaged like the Defiant, but they did some pretty good damage, at least externally, to the Borg cube. As is pretty well known, these things can function with nearly 80% destroyed or damaged because it's basically decentralized. There's no propulsion, there's no command center, there's no living quarters. It's a computer node, and it can repair. They essentially use the bioenergy of the crew to kind of keep it running. Anyway, has a myriad of weapons because, believe it or not, these are actually explorer vessels. They're not straight up warships. They are very analogous to a Galaxy class. Large crew, meant for deep space. And they are interested in science. They are interested in learning by consuming, but they are interested, so... That's why they have a wide array of tools, including the cutting beam, the tractor beam. They also have energy missiles. They have kind of plasma pulses. They don't overtly have shields as the Federation knows it. They have different EM fields and things they can generate, although it seems like they did assimilate shield technology and use it at least for tactical cubes, which are more the military version. They're quite large, just over 3,000 meters, so 3 kilometers on the edge. And they can have a crew as small as 5,000 or as large as 130,000, which would explain the whole assimilation thing, because you would maybe send one of these out and they would find a colony of, 50, 100,000 aliens and just take them all on board. And I have a feeling if they needed more room, they'd just grow it. But then again, since they mostly just live in alcoves and stuff and stay plugged in, it's not like they need a lot of space. And in 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers, with that much space, you could fit a lot of people. And it's just one of the most iconic ships in Star Trek, and one of the most iconic villains, although I still think the Dominion, along with their Cardassian allies, are maybe the best villain. The Borg are kind of a, one-shot use type villain. And I know in more recent years, people have kind of cooled, maybe not liking Best of Both Worlds and First Contact as much, but seeing both First Run, I can tell you they were very popular back then, at least to young males. So having this in the stand. I was going to mention that. Yeah, it just sits there. I think they could have done a better job on the stand, making more of a fork thing, because it just sits in here, and the thing is you have slick plastic on slick plastic. There's really nothing for it to adhere to. I might put a little dot of blue tack on it just to give it some sticky point. I mean, it's not going to fall off on its own, but it could easily be bumped. So, we already have had the tactical cube. So it's nice to have the standard cube. We've also had the gift cube, the XL, or not the XL, but the large version. It's plastic. It's nice to have as kind of a set piece, but yeah. And that's modeled after the original Q-Who Best of Both Worlds cube, not the First Contact. So while we've had variants of this before, we've never had this one. But like those, this is plastic. And I get it, you really couldn't get the detailing and the paint to do right on metal. And they did put a metal core, metal cube inside it. And that tends to be how the Borg ships end up translating to diecast. The probe is much the same way. The sphere is pretty plastic too. So I get it. It's just what it is. I'm of two minds. First off, I think it's odd that they made this the last in the collection. I honestly thought we would get maybe the Enterprise D, Saucer, and Star Drive separated as kind of a 2-pack, or maybe one model that could be put together and disconnected with either magnets would probably be best, but I figured we'd do something Federation. But funnily enough, looking back, the last human ship we got was issue 174, Archer's toy ship. Before that, we got the USS Arcos, or SS Arcos. But the last proper Federation ship, I'd have to look. It's been a little bit, honestly. The Excelsior Prototype 3, Study Model 3, maybe? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So, yeah. It's a little unusual to kind of end with very alien heavy, but I get it. This is kind of probably pet projects that people that work at Eaglemoss just wanted to see made, and I think that's why they all seem well done. The Terrelian ship is very unique in the collection, and the Sheliak is quite nice. The Husnock, I think, is even a little nicer just because of how solid it is. The Vidian is nice to have. It's a little underwhelming, but it's also nice to have in the collection. The Borg Cube. Now, it's interesting. This comes from a film. They've been doing, at least last year or so, all film ships in the special series, the large edition. For example, the Scimitar from Nemesis and the Sona ship from Insurrection. So I'm a little surprised they did this in the standard series instead of doing it in the special. It would have been a good one to do in the special size. On the other hand, it's also nice to have it to scale with the tactical cube, because they're both around 3 kilometers. So you set them side by side, they look well together. So on the one hand, I would have liked to have seen it in the special, just to get a better view of how big Borg ships are. But on the other hand, I'm glad they did it in the standard, just because it will scale well with our other Borg ships. What do you think? It is an odd one to end on, though. I do believe. I don't know, though. At least it's a major alien race. And again, we still have the bonus. I think there's still going to be a few more in that, but those tend to be more concept type ships. The choices for the last 30 editions since around 150 have been very interesting. I don't disagree with them. But we got another Miranda variant, the Antares. We had those 3 Excelsior study models all really close together. We've had some odd alien ships. Again, Archer's toy ship was kind of an interesting choice. Again, nothing I don't like. It's just, yeah, kind of interesting. Whereas the first 50 or so in the collection were the standards. Galaxy, Excelsior, the original Enterprise, Romulan Warbird, Klingon Bird of Prey, Klingon Vorcha, Romulan Bird of Prey. You know, the ones you have to have, but are a little kind of dull. It wasn't really until about issue 50 I got interested, because after that they started doing interesting ships that we hadn't really seen much before, like the Daedalus. Are these perfect? Has the Eaglemoss collection been perfect? No. There have been some missteps. But 180 issues, I would say definitely at least 150 have been successful. And even if you wanted to cherry pick, there's a good 50 ships here that would be just hugely iconic for the Star Trek collector, even the casual one. So they're kind of nice to have. I'm glad I did them. A lot of ships I didn't know how they even looked like. I mean, the cube, yeah, I could kind of infer the cube. But like the Vidian ship or the Terrelian ship, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Fish people. So what do you think? I can think of a few ships I wish they had done. For example, the other Terrelians, the one from Suddenly Human, there are, we do get the Terrelian ship Batris from Season 1. It would have been nice to get the Terrelian observation and the Terrelian Warship from Season 4. I don't know, just to have them with it. I think they're at least as important as some of the others we've had over the years. That's just me. We do pretty well have all the Federation ships. I'd have to think. There's a couple of study models, like the Titan ones, Enterprises we didn't get, but that's okay, really. Yeah. One I'd like them to do in the bonus, and they would be perfect because they do more concepts. I would love to see a Saladin class and a Ptolemy class in those, because I had those models as a kid from the old Starfleet Battles game. And those would fit perfectly into the concept nature of the bonus editions. We got the Cage Enterprise recently. I was happy about that. They did a pretty good job. They only kind of goofed on the bridge, but everything else they did quite respectable on. I would like to get the concept Romulan Warbird, which is supposed to be coming out, but it's been delayed. I wouldn't mind a couple of the other Negvar variants for the Klingons. I mean, we got 3 Word of Praise, so why not at least one more Negvar, since there were 3 variants of it. Just saying. They did really well with the Cardassians and the Dominion. We pretty much got all of those ships. I guess it'd be nice to get the other Sona ship. We got the command ship. It'd be okay to get the Sona battleship just to complete things. Oh, and another odd one I found that we didn't get. The Scorpion fighter from Nemesis. I found that odd. I wouldn't want a special of it because it's a fighter. I don't like it when they do that. I didn't really care for the oversized runabout. But if they would do just a standard edition Scorpion fighter, that would have been kind of neat. They did the Romulan shuttle from Deep Space Nine, so we saw the Scorpion just as much. And we got the Federation Academy test, pilot ship thing. So, there's been a few things I found odd that are omitted. But then there's been some really cool ones that I never would have thought of that I really enjoy, like all the Miranda variants. It's nice. So all in all, I'd say I'm 95% happy, pretty happy, maybe 90, I don't know, in that range. A, maybe not A+, but certainly A. Good effort all around, and it seems like, especially when it's a pet project ship that someone really cared about over there, they really went out and did their best. So I do appreciate that. So what do you think? Kind of looking back, if you'd like a whole list of what they've done, Memory Alpha, the Star Trek wiki, has a very comprehensive list of the entire Eaglemoss collection, and you can click on each model to see which ship they're doing. So yeah. With that, guys, I'm going to let you go and rejoin my weekend, which means doing laundry. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. As always, thank you very much, and I'll catch you very soon. Maybe not with more Star Trek models, but something next time.